Welcome to this session of GLBT Issues in Literature. I'm Rachel Hansen. Thank you so much for joining me here this evening. I feel like now here I am in the last 3 modules, and I'm starting to kind of get the routine down. That feels a little embarrassing. But if you are here to learn about feminism and have a good conversation about becoming a more authentic version of yourself, I'm glad that you are here. As ever, if you are here to comment on what a woman on the internet looks like, this is not the place for you. I already know, as it turns out. Now, in the written module, and I'm going to try something new here. I wonder if it'll show up if I put it in the chat. Yeah, look at that. I do open with maybe a slightly more shameless plug for myself than is typical. But it was my birthday on Sunday, and I'm feeling a little bit more selfish than usual. So I just want to give a friendly reminder that if you feel like you have gained a lot of value from this space, of course, the most important thing that you can do is, either come to the Substack lives or read the modules, watch the replay. But if you are so inclined, there are a few ways that you can also support financially. And that would also mean a lot to me. I do this because I love it, but it is also a lot of work. So there is that as really just a reminder of the way that you can support this work. Now, coming into our first memoir, which again, as a reminder, is All Boys Aren't Blue by George Johnson. We have made our way to, what is it, chapter 12? Nope, it's chapter 13. We've made it to chapter 13, which is also George Johnson's high school graduation. Now, I feel like the memoir up to this point really has been leading to this moment. And so as a reader, it feels really exciting, right? That he's made it. He's made it to high school graduation. But if you are kind of reading between the lines until you get to the end of the chapter, you also notice that he is maybe feeling just a little bit nervous. And on page 237, he says, "Notice my varying confidence and discouragement throughout this chapter. Notice my confusion and how strong I thought I was in some moments and how weak I was in others, because that is what coming out truly is." And as ever, whenever I read a quote out loud, I notice a bunch of typos. So there's that. But I really appreciate Johnson as a writer really bringing this to the surface in a very obvious way. And that is taking those first steps into young adulthood really come with a lot of trepidation, right? That feeling of confidence that you get when you know that you've succeeded in something really big, which graduating from high school certainly is. But also, it's kind of scary to be an adult out there in the world. And I really just appreciate. And I also think just in his own ability to be self-aware, it's going to be an ally to him through challenging times, as we kind of wrap out the memoir here. But that also self-awareness can be such an incredible tool for us as we kind of make our way through life, right? Like just existing here in the world. Excuse me. Maybe more than you need to know, but I had some chili for dinner tonight and it was delicious. But also now I'm really feeling that decision in my belly. So this is just a very human week, I think, here in issues in GLBT literature. And there's nothing wrong with that. But moving now into Zami, a new spelling of my name, which again, that is this right here. We're making our way into chapters, I believe 26 and 27. And we talked about this last week as well, right? Audre Lorde really kind of growing into herself, being more honest, but also really talking about her growing relationship with Muriel. And of that relationship, Lorde shares with us as readers, and I quote, "When I recall the time Muriel and I spent together, I remember the assurances we gave each other, the sense of a shared niche out of the storm, and the wonder grounded in magic and hard work." Now, you might have noticed I emphasized the hard work there at the end. And I emphasize that because of how important I really do think that it is. As we've been talking about together this semester, relationships really can be challenging. But the best ones are ones where we're putting in that labor, right? And I think that this is especially important when we're talking about romantic relationships, like the kind that Lorde is talking about here. Because I think we really, when it comes to those romantic relationships and those lifelong partnerships, socially, and I don't think that it's necessarily the fault of any of us, like as individuals, but we have a very Disney-fied idea of romantic relationships, right? You love each other and therefore everything is going to work out just fine. And so then when you get into these challenges, right, like the fights that you have as as romantic partners, it really does make you feel like you're doing it wrong. When, right, like most of us really are not, right? It turns out that even if you love somebody a whole lot, it might still kind of bug you. If for years your partner's socks wind up next to the hamper instead of in the hamper at the end of the day. And right, like this is just like a relatively benign example, but that really is where the hard work comes in, and not because it is hard to be with them, But because when you know it, again, after a decade or more of agains, the socks are still on the floor. And it can take a lot of work, like just within yourself, to remind yourself that in the scheme of things, a sock on the floor is really not that big of a deal. And so I think really like what I wrote in the module is probably, I'm babbling a little bit, but is really the best way to sum this up, which is to say that the best relationships are born out of magic, but stay with us through hard work. Now my writing on these chapters in our memoirs was relatively brief. If for no other reason than that, here at the end of the semester, I think we all get a little bit worn out, students and teachers alike. And so brevity was just the name of the game. But I did want to also visit a journal article between Discretion and Disclosure that was published in the Journal of Lesbian Studies in 2019 and was written by Kay Ilmonen and Kay Mäkinen. And what they're really helping us to dissect here is the different ways that you can name yourself. Right, like the management of what we share with others, right? Like now you all know I had chili for dinner tonight, and what we hold close. And we all have things that we hold close, right? Just because you are living authentically and sharing openly does not necessarily mean that you're sharing everything, right? You're definitely not sharing all the things. But that in and of itself is a kind of labor, right? Deciding who you're going to be in this moment. And also having that agency that if you maybe don't necessarily like how you're showing up in a moment, that you can make a different decision that is more aligned with the person that you do want to be. And kind of in this way, then we are ourselves, but we're also actively transforming ourselves. And it's this conversation and these different like examples of being that I think really make both of these memoirs so powerful and worth our time. That there's not a clear arrival point for either one of them. And of course, we'll talk about this yet for a few more weeks. But what we see with both of them really is that constant, like, settling and then renegotiating. Because ultimately, like, truly being your authentic self, especially when the culture around you is resisting it, right? Isn't just a single act of bravery, right? It's constant practice over time. And a lot of that depends on the tools that you have been given, and then what tools you are, like you could say building from scratch or identifying that you need through whatever way, right? That all of that, while it's extremely worthwhile, is also a lot of really hard work. think a little bit shorter tonight than is typical, but one last thing that I really wanted to touch on is kind of that idea of being your authentic self when the culture around you resists that authenticity. Because I think that it really, I think that it's also important to examine like the reason for the resistance, right? Right, like we are seeing this politically in the United States right now, where and I'm going to say particularly one group over another group, where culture broadly is very much against them. And they kind of take that attitude as kind of a martyrdom sort of an attitude. And I'll be honest, I don't love that. But really that willingness to be curious about why the resistance is happening is also critically important. Right? Is resistance happening because potentially legitimate harm is coming to somebody? Or is it resistance just because, right? Like there's no reason for it. But engaging in that compassionate curiosity, I think, is critically important as we really kind of move forward in that attempt to be authentic while also kind of like renegotiating what that looks like day to day. So I think as we really kind of now move into this next week, I really hope that you will take some time. I know that I will be as well, just thinking about the kind of labor that you have put into being the type of person that you want to be. Just something to sit with and think about. Now I am, first of all, turning around to look at my calendar here. So I will look forward to being in your inbox again on April 20th, and then back here with you live at this same time on April 23rd. So I hope you have a great week, and I will see you soon.